Senate Democrats, you're looking at them right now. That's Senator Chuck Schumer of New York unveiling draft legislation to decriminalize marijuana. Let's listen in.
It's long overdue. We have all seen the agony of a young person arrested with a small amount of marijuana in his or her pocket. And because of the historical overcriminalization of marijuana, they have a very severe criminal record they have to live with their whole lives. Tougher to get a job, tougher to get credit, tougher to live a normal life. The waste of human resources because of the historic overcriminalization has been one of the great historical wrongs for the last decades. And we are going to change it. We are going to fight hard to change it. And America is on our side. 70% of Americans now support legalizing adult use of marijuana. In the 2020 election, it was put on the ballot by petition in South Dakota, and even South Dakota, one of the most conservative states in America, a majority voted to legalize adult recreational use of marijuana. If South Dakota can do it, the Senate should be able to do it. And we're going to fight to make sure it happens. My thinking, of course, like so many others, has evolved on the issue. When the laboratory of states, led by Senator Wyden's state in Colorado, legalized, the opponents had listed this parade of horribles. Drug use will go up, crime will go up. Well, that didn't happen. None of those parade of horribles ever occurred. And now, for justice and for freedom, it makes eminent sense to legalize marijuana. A number of states, including my own of New York, just legalized recently. The doom and gloom predictions haven't materialized in any of these states. And as more and more states legalize marijuana, it's time for our federal cannabis law to catch up. We also very much believe in the expungement of records. Because of the historical overcriminalization, people shouldn't have to live. If they had a small amount of marijuana in their possession, people shouldn't have to live with a criminal record the rest of their lives. Expunge those records. Let these people become productive citizens without that criminal record, severe criminal record, hanging over their head. We also want to make sure that there's a fair administration and that smaller businesses and communities of color are not left out as marijuana is legalized and sold across the country. So this is a bill we've consulted the experts. We've consulted many of our colleagues. And the next step for this critical legislation is getting further input from stakeholder groups, which is essential to the legislation's success. It's time for the country to engage in this discussion and update our federal laws, not only to reflect popular wisdom, but science. I yield to Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Majority Leader Schumer. And I'm going to be brief. This is cannabis common sense. And I'm very pleased to be here with the Majority Leader, my friend Senator Booker, who has done so much work on this issue. And I'm here because the current cannabis prohibition, a pillar in the failed war on drugs, has been devastating to millions of Americans who seek only common sense and fairness from their government. For example, it defies common sense that small businesses now living in areas where cannabis is legal cannot deduct their business expenses or access the banking system. A few days ago, I saw exactly what cannabis common sense is when I visited a dispensary in Astoria, Oregon. The employees came up to me when I was there and they said, "Ron, thanks for what you're doing to legalize cannabis back there in D.C. Right now," said the employees, "we're getting great pay and great benefits. and they want that to be made more available. Now, during the year when most businesses were struggling to keep their doors open, the COVID period, the cannabis industry added hundreds of jobs. And as I mentioned, they were good paying jobs with health care and other benefits. And what we're going to do is make small businesses and minority entrepreneurs a fixture at the table, a place where they have always been sidelined and shut out. For example, our proposal is going to give them an opportunity to get ahead through the small business grant programs, and we want to make sure that they get a fair shake in taxation, which is why they are going to pay half the rate of the big businesses. This moment has culminated for years with red and blue states alike taking action. And I'm very thrilled that the majority leader and Senator Booker have incorporated many of the provisions that were in my S-420 bill that I introduced a number of years ago. This is cannabis reform done right, a good dose of common sense and fairness that is long overdue in America. And with the leader's indulgence, can we just go to Senator Booker?
No. I introduce Cory Booker.
I've never been fought over like that before. This is a historic day. This is a historic day. The United States of America has never seen a day like this before. The first time, Senator Schumer said it was the first time a Democratic leader. No, this is the first time in American history the majority leader of the United States Senate is leading the call to end prohibition of marijuana. And joining him is the chairperson of arguably one of, if not the most powerful committees in the United States Senate. This is a historic day that these two leaders are going to put their will and their work and all of their heart behind this justice bill. It has been a long journey to this moment. In my very first months in the Senate, in the basement, I had a press conference with families of children who had something called Gervais syndrome, which is seizures. The brave young girl sitting in a wheelchair had over, at times, 100 a day. And her mother was what you call a marijuana refugee because it was illegal in her state, so she moved to a state where marijuana had been legalized at the state level, but she talked about the fact that she was still violating federal law and that she could be prosecuted, that the person that was providing it could be prosecuted, that universities couldn't study marijuana to get the dosage right for her child. During that press conference, her child fell into a seizure. To this day, it's still one of the most moving moments of my Senate career. That we have criminalized Americans, and now some people, for trying to help their child, and now some people are probably wondering, well, people aren't getting arrested anymore for possession of marijuana. Well, I'll tell you right now, I saw it when Jeff Sessions became the Attorney General and said he would restart prosecutions. I see it now in the facts all around our country. In 2019, there were more marijuana arrests than all other violent crime arrests combined. And the majority of those were for simple possession. This is a grievous reality. Lives are being destroyed every single day. And the hypocrisy of this is that right here in the Capitol, now people running for Congress, people running for Senate, people running for President of the United States readily admit that they've used marijuana. But we have children in this country, people all over this nation, our veterans, black and brown people, low-income people, now bearing the stain of having a criminal conviction for doing things that half of the last 4 presidents admitted to doing. We are in the midst of a grievous moment of injustice, and it is deep at the core of who we say we are, equal justice under law. And so we have waited too long. We've seen the disaster of prohibition once before in this nation. This is hurting every American, and I end with this fact. Law enforcement resources all over this country are desperately needed to solve crimes that are hurting other Americans, theft and larceny and assault, sexual assault, and other violence. But yet, instead, we have our precious resources being used to lock up majority black and brown people for doing things that presidents and congresspeople and senators have done. This bill is urgent. This bill is long past due. And I am proud that today we are making history by having the 2 champions on either side of me leading this fight to finally end the war on drugs, which, as Senator Schumer said, has been a war on people, to end prohibition once and for all for marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take questions on this subject only. Go ahead, the bonus.
This issue has broad support in your caucus. It has significant fiscal implications. Why not include it in the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill that you expect to pass in the next couple months?
Because this is going to be a process. This is a draft bill. We intend to show it to all of the stakeholders. We don't have the votes necessary at this point, but we have a large majority of our caucus for it. We're going to show it to the others and say, well, what don't you like? What do you like? And we'll see if we can get the support. But we're going to put our muscle behind it, our effort behind it, and we are going to get this done ASAP.
Yeah, so there's a lot of skepticism on Wall Street and from the sort of the business analysts who are looking at this, that you'll ever be able to get 10 Republicans for something this sweeping, that maybe you could do something smaller, like a banking bill, like something that's a little bit more...
A banking bill deals with a small part of this, but not what needs to be done. We need a broad, comprehensive bill.
Can I just say something on that?
Go ahead.
I'm telling you right now, if somebody tries in the Senate to do just a banking bill, they're going to make all the wealth and the money that is going after this already is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But what could become a even bigger industry, to just do it so some people can get rich and not do something about the people who are languishing with criminal convictions, not do something on restorative justice, not do something to make sure that the business opportunities that are created are fairly given a fair playing field, where right now in many states, someone who has a criminal conviction for selling marijuana can't get a license now. I don't know about other members of the Senate, but I will lay myself down to do everything I can to stop an easy banking bill that's going to allow all these corporations to make a lot more money off of this, as opposed to focusing on the restorative justice aspects.
Let me just make sure we understand about the revenue. The revenue generated through legalizing cannabis will go directly to support restoration of the lives of those most harmed by the war on drugs, as well as public health and safety. What we're talking about, of course, this week, things like clean energy, for example, and other priorities, we're going to focus on making sure that the super wealthy and millionaires pay their fair share as part of covering those priorities.
And let me just say, communities of color have paid such an awful price for the historical overcriminalization of marijuana that we want to make sure that the money goes back to them and doesn't just get, the biggest, strongest banker gets to just scoop it all up.
Expunge records.
Right.
And expunge records, I mentioned that, yes.
Yes. Have any of you spoken to anyone at the White House about this idea, and what is your sense of it?
The White House knows we are introducing this legislation, and we intend to show them the draft legislation and ask them to support it. Yes.
You mentioned a laboratory of states sort of leading the way on this. What would a proposal like this mean for states that haven't taken that step to legalize various forms?
They'd have to catch up to probably where their public is.
But it will be their option. And that is why, for the life of me, I don't understand how Republicans who say they're for states' rights won't support what my colleagues are talking about, because what this bill does is we decriminalize at the federal level, but we don't require states to legalize. So this speaks right to what the majority leader is saying. If they're listening to their constituents, and this is being done all over the country, they're going to move of their own volition. But the three of us are supporting a states' rights approach that says decriminalize at the federal level, give the states the option.
Right. We're not forcing the states, but we believe this will give impetus to the states and impetus to their populations that are strongly for this. Go ahead, Broom.
Yes. What effect will this have on New York and other states that have already decriminalized?
Well,
Did you say New Jersey or New York, sir?
he's talking about that football team that has the NY on their helmet.
That plays in New Jersey.
Yeah, we have this discussion every time we do something.
I've listened to this.
What professional football team is in Oregon?
We believe in the trailblazers.
The
Timbers,
Trailblazers. Yes, they're
and the
doing all right.
Thorns.
The bottom line is it's still against federal law. So even though the state can legalize, which New York has done, this will not have the federal government interfere in any way.
Last question.
Last question.
This is just a clarification question. So does this mean the Senate will not act on the House-passed Safe Banking Act?
Look, this is a very comprehensive bill. We put a lot of work and a lot of time into this. It's a draft bill, and we're going to now go to our colleagues and ask explicitly to all of them, what don't you support here? What can you support here? We're going to get something done, and we'll have to figure out, the best way to get that done, but we are going to get something done. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.